Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today was day number 2 of San Francisco 49ers training camp, and it was the first day the Niners took the field in 2024. We got to see Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, got to see some young stars shine, D. Winters, Malik Mustapha. We also got to hear that Trent Williams was not there today, held out due to contract, dare I say, issues, if that's the right word you want to use. And of course, we got to see Brandon Aiyuk holding in because of contract issues, if you want to call it that. I want to kindly ask you to like, share, and subscribe to the show because we are going to be chronicling every single day of San Francisco 49ers training camp. We talked about day 1 last night, yesterday, and we're talking about and reacting to day number 2 of Niners camp right now. But first, we have to do some housekeeping, and that is simply that the semantics of what happened at practice. When you saw Deebo Samuel for the first time, when you saw Javon Hargrave for the first time, it is clear both of those two players are fighting for the best shape of their lives title on day number 2 of training camp. Deebo Samuel has been kind of posting on social media about his workouts. You can see he's lost probably 10 pounds, maybe a little less than that, but you can see he's redistributed the body weight that he had last year. He slimmed down somewhat wearing number 1. Now he had to make the number 1 look better because it didn't look great during OTAs and didn't look great during minicamp, but he looks healthier. He looks stronger. He looks like he's poised for another all-pro-like season. Then you get to Javon Hargrave, who himself admitted to last year he wasn't in the best shape that he could have been. You saw pictures today, you saw a video of him today. He looks like a brand new man. If I were to go on a limb, I would assume he's lost about 10 to 15 pounds. I mean, that's how big, how drastic the weight change has been, where you have two guys, a receiver and a defensive tackle, that are older. They're almost near 30s. Hargrave is in his 30s, that have changed their bodies and got themselves, again, arguably in the best shape of their lives, heading into what could be the last dance for this core. So a great way to start off day or practice number 1 for the Niners. While there wasn't much news about this next player, Christian McCaffrey was on hand for practice today. Didn't take part in team drills, but was present at camp, was there doing solo drills, warming up, stretching, and doing things with the team. So while there wasn't much talk of Christian McCaffrey, it is because the Niners are going to take things slow with him. If you remember what Kyle Shanahan said, I believe it was prior to them breaking for summer break, they discussed that the plan was to kind of limit the workload for Christian McCaffrey this year. Him not partaking in today's practice is part of that, trying to save Christian McCaffrey from himself, if you lean towards what Kyle Shanahan had to say before the summer break. Spencer Burford took all the reps with the first team at right guard. We are not sure if that's going to be a continuous thing going forward with the team. We know that Burford has the ire of many, Niner fans do not like Spencer Burford currently because of what happened against the Kansas City Chiefs, where he didn't pick up the blitz. But going into year 3 for Burford, the expectation is that you started a lot of games the last 2 years, meaningful games the last 2 years. The hope is that in year 3, you take that next step. But you would assume, since Jake Brendel's fully healthy, which wasn't expected, at least from me, and John Feliciano is still there, that are Feliciano and Burford going to share reps again like they did last year, which kind of worked, kind of didn't. You'd want to have one cemented starter in there, but again, it's day 1. Time will tell. But as of, again, one practice, Spencer Burford got the majority, if not all of the first team reps at right guard. That brings us to the left side of the offensive line, and that is Jalen Moore filled in at left tackle with the first team because Trent Williams decided to no-show today, which was a surprise he didn't no-show, although I don't think the reasoning behind it surprised anybody. The expectation was that Trent was going to be there, but Kyle Shanahan himself said that the reason why Trent wasn't at camp was because it was a contract-related issue, but it didn't blindside them. They have been having discussions for a while, and so Trent not being there on day number 2 of camp didn't shock them, didn't surprise them. But I will say this, that Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk situations are very different. And it's funny, again, we talked last night and this morning about how Aiyuk and CeeDee Lamb's situations are very similar, right? 2 receivers, same draft class, 5th-year option, both want to get paid. But the way they're going about things, their leverage is very different, right? Well, that same thing can be true for Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk. Now, both are subject to fines. Brandon Aiyuk is subject to $40,000 fines every single day he does not show up. Now, again, he is there. He's at training camp. He was there today in street clothes, didn't practice, which was expected. But Trent Williams, he is subject to $50,000 fines every single day he does not report to Niner camp. But unlike Aiyuk's fines, which are able to be waived by rule of the contract agreement, the CBA, the Niners cannot forgive the fines given to Trent Williams. Now, the expectation would be that once he gets a new contract, the fines are going to be meaningless. They'll make up $50,000. And if you listen to what Kyle Shanahan had to say, that they knew this was coming. They've been trying to get things done for the last few weeks, if not months, that you would like to think this thing doesn't last too much longer, that Parag and Jed and John and Trent's agents are all working on these things. And again, going forward with the leverage conversation, Trent Williams holds all the leverage. We talk a lot about, how San Francisco goes about their contract negotiations with Aiyuk and then previously Deebo and Warner and Kittle and others in that grouping, right? The outlier in that grouping is always Nick Bosa, because Nick Bosa was a player San Francisco openly admitted to that's like, look, we cannot trade him. We can't afford to lose him. We are going to pay him. That same thing, that same standard goes for Trent Williams. The San Francisco 49ers are essentially facing having to repay their offensive Nick Bosa. Now, it's not going to be record-breaking money like Nick Bosa's was, but it's going to be a significant raise for a player like Trent Williams, who is currently the 12th highest paid left tackle based on his average guaranteed earnings per season. He ranks 5th in fully guarantees for left tackles. And if you go back to, whether it's PFF or ESPN, ain't no way anyone's ranking Trent Williams below the number 1 left tackle in football. Now, is he underpaid? The answer to me is no, because he's making multi-million dollars a year. But in regards to the market, he's an older player. He wants to make sure he gets that final contract. He's still playing at an elite level. Although there are some concerns about his ankle, which could implode at any single moment, San Francisco's already done good on Christian McCaffrey. The same thing goes for Trent Williams. You pay the players that have been at the top of the game for a long time. And just like San Francisco couldn't afford to not pay, couldn't afford to not give a raise to Christian McCaffrey, they cannot afford to not give a raise to Trent Williams. When you ask, you go back and you look at all the star left tackles in football, Trent Williams is one of a kind. Yes, there are greats in the NFL the last decade, 2 decades, Joe Thomas being one of them, Orlando Pace being another one, right? Trent Williams in Kyle Shanahan's offense is essentially another weapon. what they do with him running behind him, getting McCaffrey out in space behind Trent Williams is almost a death sentence for a defense. And so they're going to pay him. There's no concern here, no worry. Kyle Shanahan isn't concerned. Even Fred Warner said, yeah, he's not here. It stinks, but this is business. The difference is of Aiyuk and Trent Williams is that Aiyuk's contract will probably get done. Trent's contract will get done. The Niners can win many double-digit games without Brandon Aiyuk. But go to the Niners' record with and without Trent Williams. They are 32-12 with him the past 3 years. They are 3-4 without him. So while, yes, it's a headline-making move, and in fact, the move or the holdout's kind of a blessing in disguise for San Francisco. We talked a lot during the offseason about Brandon Aiyuk, and we talked a lot about McCaffrey and what other moves could San Francisco be making that could free up money. Many of them were re-signing or extending Lenore, Charvarius Ward, getting ahead of contracts like Talanoa Hufanga, areas in which they could lower cap hits this year, the next couple of years, or in Charvarius Ward's case, get rid of dead years in that contract, void years in that contract. The similar thing applies to Trent Williams. You extend him now, you lower cap hits potentially almost $10 million this year and maybe even the next few years. If you get ahead of this and you extend Trent Williams, despite it's going to be on headlines for ESPN and Fox, and you're going to see it on NFL Live, and every single article out there in regards to San Francisco is going to be, it's chaos in Santa Clara. What's happening? Nothing. Nothing new is happening in Santa Clara. In fact, good things are happening with San Francisco and their contracts. If you're a Niner fan, you shouldn't balk at Williams wanting more money or wanting a new contract. You should actively be saying, yes, give him more money, not because he deserves it, although it's true. You actively want him to get paid because it frees up more money to pay people like Brandon Aiyuk, to retain Brock Purdy, to re-sign Lenore and Mooney Ward and Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw eventually. It opens up doors to continue this window that people think is closing when in fact, oh yes, players are getting older. If you re-sign Trent and lock him into 3 more years of playing, you're guaranteed, hopefully, fingers crossed, to have an all-pro future Hall of Fame left tackle playing for you. Yes, that's great. But you can also bring back more of the current roster to help you win games and hopefully win a Super Bowl. And I know Bobo was in the comments saying it shocked them that he held out. It didn't shock me at all. It made a lot of sense. Ernie Chavez says, no Trent, no problem. If no Trent week 1, I'm worried. Ernie, I get you. If San Francisco, for whatever reason, tends to, kind of play chicken with him, that's a concern. The difference is, like Nick Bosa, they realize they have to pay Trent Williams. He's not Aiyuk. He ain't a Kittle. he ain't insert other player they would like to re-sign. He isn't Raheem Mostert a handful of years ago. They know they need to re-sign Williams for a variety of reasons. I want to shout out Jim Everett the Great. Rams house in the house. Well, my question is whose house? Because it definitely isn't your guys's. It's probably ours. But happy the Rams fans are in here. Going to be a great year for both of our teams. NFC West is going to be crazy this season. Seattle's okay still. We're really good. The Rams, I think, are honestly a dark horse Super Bowl team if they can get the defense right. I don't want to say that loudly, but it might be true. JJ says on Facebook, Trent is a beast. Pay that man. You're right, JJ. They are going to pay that man. I would expect it to happen very, very, very soon. Very soon. In Leon Sandcastle, one of the greatest names ever. In fact, Leon, I don't know what Madden it was. And I get it. It's a Deion Sanders character he played on or at the NFL Combine, but you can actually play as Leon Sandcastle in a Madden game. That's awesome. Anyways, Leon Sandcastle says, get Jalen Moore his snaps Trent hasn't had a fully healthy season in like a decade. He'll miss a few games. Moore has got to be ready. He can use the reps. Trent doesn't need to be there right now. No tackling. You're right. That's one thing that has to be said. There's no pads. Any offensive line play, defensive line play is almost null and void. It means nothing, right? Even receivers and defensive back play at times, depending on the play, means nothing. There's no pads. You can't get physical. None of that stuff. But man, I agree with you. And this almost goes in the vein of Ricky Pearsall. He's missing reps, missing valuable reps. Jalen Moore, although you don't want him out there ever, there could be a time like there was last year and even 2 years ago when it was Colt McKivitz that Williams does miss time. You have to have your guys ready, although it's practice number one. You want to make sure your backups are ready to go. And so for Jalen Moore, however long this is, it's funny because during the NFL draft process, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch tried to tell the fan base they liked Jalen Moore a lot. And to that I said, seriously? Like, since when? That said, it's not like he doesn't need to be ready if and likely when Trent goes down for a game or two. So I agree with you. It's valuable reps now. You just hope that he actually gets to have those when the pads come on to see what he can do. Some guys pop late in their career. He isn't old. He just hasn't proven much. So time will tell. But I would not look at Trent Williams holdout as a big deal. Honestly, this thing could get done tomorrow, and I say, it makes sense. Like, they know they have to get the deal done. Moving on to the guy who is not holding out, but holding in. Brandon Aiyuk. Kyle Shanahan admitted today that it was a hold in. The expectation isn't for Aiyuk to practice unless they get a deal done. They still want to get a contract done with him, but with every single passing day, there are new layers to the Aiyuk saga. It's not just he's holding in. It's not just he's not going to practice now. It's Brandon Aiyuk has a sore back and a neck. I don't know how that happens unless you're working out and practicing, but I digress. I'm not Brandon Aiyuk. Obviously, he's been doing work away from Levi's Stadium, but it's not just, holding out. Now it's, you're also injured. Now, probably isn't too serious, mind you, but something to keep an eye on. You don't know how long these things can linger, but holding in, yes, like Bobo asks here, means no fines. If you're there and you're in team meetings and you're injured, like Aiyuk is saying, you don't get fined. You do not get fined, which could be a ploy. I won't say that, but maybe it is. Who knows? But Mike Silver today, this afternoon, released an article on the San Francisco Chronicle, and he was detailing the differences of Trent Williams' holdout and Aiyuk's hold in. And he said this, and it goes back to what I said yesterday and weeks ago and throughout the entirety of the offseason, that Aiyuk has continually missed the boat on when to enact his negotiation tactics. Every single time, whether it's the draft or asking for a trade or even showing up yesterday after asking for a trade. Those are things you don't do to tell the team you're trying to negotiate with, this is serious, I'm not going to play. And there was a quote from an organizational source that talked to Mike Silver today in regards to Brandon Aiyuk's contract negotiations that said, the way Aiyuk has carried himself, seeing him interact, it didn't create a real sense of fear that this won't get done. Now, to many, that's a duh. Duh. Of course, this thing's going to get done. We all know it's going to get done. But it just shows you that not me talking, not you talking. I see in there Lori saying Aiyuk's running his mouth too much. Ernie Chavez, Bobo, AJ Cruz. What's up, guys? Not you guys. Not me. The Niners organization doesn't take Aiyuk's tactics seriously. Like, come on. When you do that, I would not be shocked, because San Francisco is not going to cave here, that Aiyuk can ask for 30 and 30 and $30 million every single time. I would not be shocked if he actually takes that $26 million offer anyways. Would not be shocked now, because he's almost made this a joke. It's a running joke of what's Aiyuk gonna do next that no one takes seriously. I clowned him for even showing up yesterday. Why? If you want to be taken serious, your actions have to match what you're saying, but they never have, which honestly is a good thing for Niners and the fan base. He obviously wants to be here. He obviously wants to be here. And you know who else wants to be here? Fluffy Ninja's wife, Yolanda. She's a first-time listener. Thank you so much, Yolanda. Hope you're having a wonderful, Wednesday afternoon, celebrating Niners practice, Niners football back in our lives for the first time. Let's move on to some injury news, because there was some not so serious injury news and there was potentially some serious injury news today. The not serious injury news is that Demetrius Flannigan-Falls limped off the field. Not sure what happened. Not sure if it was a lower body injury, an ankle, a quad, a knee. No one knows, but there was no further reports of his injury after practice, so time will tell. Hoping it's not serious, but just a big unknown right now. Leonard Floyd, who was signed this past offseason to be this next great edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa. The first play of practice, he injures his calf, or what looked like his calf, and limped off the field. Thankfully, he later returned, and it seems like it may have just been a cramp. I don't know about you. It's 105 degrees where I'm at. 100 degrees where I'm at. I'm sure the heat at Levi Stadium was not doing those guys well. You gotta drink your water. You gotta hydrate, folks. Get your electrolytes in. Liquid IV, some Gatorade, although I wouldn't. Gatorade has too much sugar in it. But drink your water. Hydrate. Probably a cramp. Happy he was back. He's played 108 straight games. Hasn't missed a game since 2017. In the first play of practice with the Niners, he gets hurt. Again, it wasn't serious. He was out there again, but could be something to look out for. The Niners have had this weird thing where they sign a guy who's been an all-pro for the last 5 years, and he sucks in San Francisco. My mind goes back to Nate Clements, right? He was a great Buffalo Bill, one of the best cornerbacks in football. Gets to San Francisco. Terrible. One of the worst signings ever. I'm not going to put that juju on Leonard Floyd. I'm just saying, when you haven't missed 108 games and you haven't missed a game since 2017, in the first play of practice, you tweak the calf, you steer clear from that right there. Keep me away from that. But there actually was some serious injury news today. No, it wasn't anything crazy like a torn ACL or a torn UCL, but rookie running back Isaac Guerendo, according to Kyle Shanahan, looked like he hyperextended his hamstring. I'm not sure how you hyperextend your hamstring, but I digress. I'm no doctor. Guerendo will undergo further evaluation to see what the severity of the injury is, and this has been a big thing for him. This is why the Raheem Mostert comps are great, but they're all too realistic. It's a guy that in college, shows so much potential, but injuries after injury after injury, bounces around from team to team to team, and after team, number 7 for Mostert, finally finds his stride in his late 20s, now doing great things with Miami. Isaac Guerendo, very similar, right? Never had 200 touches in college. I think the most touches he had in one single year at Louisville was 102 or 112 or 120, around that range. It wasn't much. He was a rotational back that had starting potential. But every time he get going, an injury, another injury, another injury. In fact, injuries hindered Isaac Guerendo so much in college, that it made some teams completely take him off the board or had him as a 6th round pick of, we don't want to waste a 3rd or a 4th rounder on this kid because there are injury history there. And it's not just ankles, it's the hamstrings. If you see Guerendo in person, his hamstrings are are they're massive. They're massive, massive injuries. Or excuse me, they're massive hamstrings. You can see why they get injured so often. He's a walking hamstring. He's massive in his lower body. But when you have gigantic muscles like that, they're gonna pull. They're gonna tear. When your body is essentially a walking hamstring, it's no surprise to me these injuries happen. But it also means that he's unproven. It also means that this is why I believe I cannot see San Francisco trading away Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason before the year. A lot of talk is, oh, trade Mitchell. You have Mason, you have Guerendo, you have Patrick Taylor Jr. now. And well, maybe things happen that way and they play out that way. I have a hard time believing that Isaac Guerendo is going to usurp Elijah Mitchell, maybe even Jordan Mason, because he has to prove he can stay healthy first before even seeing the field, which still in that case, he's not even proven himself yet. So it's not uber serious. He could miss a couple days. He could miss 2 or 3 weeks, but it is something that you have to look for when a guy has history, right? Isaac Guerendo has the talent to stick in the NFL. The question is, does he have the durability to even get on the field? The high hopes are there. The ceiling is there. But will he actually be able to get out there? I hope he can. I think he could be this team's second best running back behind Christian McCaffrey, but you got to play. You got to play. And I hope the injury isn't serious. I want him to succeed because you can see so much potential being held back by his own body. And when you see that, it almost breaks your heart for a young player like him because you can see like the testing is off the charts. You just got to play over 150 snaps a year, my guy. That's all you got to do, or 150 carries. You can help this team win. You can have a great career. Just got to stay healthy. I'm moving on to practice itself. A lot of good, some bad. It's the first day of practice. Things are sloppy. You and I both know you take a long extended break, whether it's summer and you're back in school and you're like, oh, I forgot 1 + 1 = 2. I'm dumb. Haha. Or if you're on winter break or you go on vacation with your kids, you go to Hawaii or you just kind of unwind, you check out. That first day back is rough. You're like, you're pulling out the eye boogers, you're rubbing your eyes. You're like, I forgot what real life was like. That's what it was today for San Francisco. A lot of penalties, really messy. It was guys kind of getting their feet back under him, but starting at the quarterback position, Brock Purdy, he's all brocked up. He's all hulked up. He's bulky now. He's muscles. He's got gigantic quads and hamstrings, and he's flexing. He looks bigger. He looks stronger. In fact, Brock Purdy talked about this in the post-practice press conference that he actually had the time, because he wasn't rehabbing the UCL, to work on his body, get himself in shape, and kind of figure things out to make himself the most durable and strongest version of himself we've seen so far. During practice, there wasn't a lot from him. Purdy did miss a couple of deep shots downfield. To be fair, there were flags on both those plays, offsides on the defense. But like Brock Purdy always does, he's taking shots downfield, trying to make big plays, and doing what he does best, right? He's going to do the small stuff well. Small stuff, great. But if you try to play lenient, you want to play man-to-man, he's going to take shots. And that is still true today. When it was in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs, Brock Purdy is still Brock Purdy, even on day one of practice. And he actually talked about, how he attacks practice in year number 3. Is he worried about being efficient or, hitting the home run ball? How does he attack practice in this offense? And he said, just kind of, summing up what he said here, that it's about being efficient, making the right decisions over and over and over again. Trying to be a superhero and make all these different kinds of throws, that's not how we are coached. That's not how we win games. And I think right there, you kind of get what Brock Purdy's doing. He wants to master the offense. He knows, we talked yesterday, or even this morning, that Shanahan, his scheme is very much based on trust from the quarterback, right? Where if you trust Kyle's scheme and his play calling, you're going to go really far. Whether you're Jimmy G, Nick Mullins, Matt Ryan, Brian Hoyer, Matt Schaub, now Brock Purdy, if you trust Kyle and do the reads he says, the check downs, the number one read, and you go through your progressions, you're going to win a lot of games. And right there, what Brock Purdy said is like, look, I want to master the offense. I want to do what my coach asks me to do over and over and over again. But despite being very efficient and doing the right things over and over again, while I'm not trying to be a superhero, I do have a little bit of a Superman cape on me. That there still is in him the want, the desire to take deep shots downfield. And that's not to say Shanahan doesn't draw those plays up. In fact, Shanahan has drawn more of those plays up recently for Purdy than previous quarterbacks in San Francisco. It's just to say that Purdy is so much more willing to trust and buy into the scheme as a whole, but still has that, I want to win. I want to go for it. I want to throw, bombs downfield left and right. He talked about having Jacob Cowing and Ricky Pearsall and their speed on the offense now, what that can do for him and the offense. Brock Purdy wants to take the top off. He does, and he will. But he also realizes if I master that scheme and that play calling, I'm not going to be asked to do all the Mahomes-like things. Can he do some of those things? Sure. I am someone who has said Brock Purdy has a little Brett Favre in him in regards to the gunslinger mentality, right? Not the whole text messaging thing to his, wife, all that stuff, and his mistress. Purdy's a nice Christian man out there in Iowa with the cornfields. But Brock Purdy has the gunslinger mentality of I want to go out there and just what's guns blazing, right? But also I trust the scheme so much that I believe in what Kyle's saying, and we saw some of that today. Now it was only one play, but we know who Brock Purdy is now. He was a near MVP winner. By all means, could have won, although Lamar Jackson was great, and so was Josh Allen, and so was Christian McCaffrey. We know who he is. He's a great quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback, my number 8 quarterback on my quarterback tier ranking this year. We're headed into this year. But today, Brock Purdy's first throw of practice, a perfect 25-yard floater on the run to third-string tight end Eric Saubert downfield. Saubert goes up and gets it over Devondre Campbell next to the sideline, and that's what it is right there. It's master the offense, but it's not just mastering the scheme and where to go with the ball. It's the ability to make, or it's the ability within the play to make the best throw you possibly can. The ability to throw it over a linebacker to make your tight end and give him the ability to be the only person to catch the ball. I'm not going to come up here and just love on Brock Purdy, although it's pretty hard to hate on him. He has some drawbacks at times, but the drawbacks are so minimal that it feels like every single day we hear about these near perfect throws, or if you're there at training camp, you see the perfect throws and are like, oh my God, they lucked into this kid, but he is still really, really good. But good to see day one, Purdy looks good already, looks sharp for the most part. Again, there are some things that'll get cleaned up along the way, but you can see him attacking practice of wanting to be perfect over and over and over again. Unfortunately, for the backup quarterbacks, perfection was a very, very, very long ways away. Very long ways away. We talked about yesterday that it's Joshua Dobbs and Brandon Allen fighting for the quarterback 2 job. I'm someone that believes that Brandon Allen's floor is a lot higher than Joshua Dobbs, but Dobbs has the higher ceiling. Dobbs can make you beat other teams, can help you beat oppositions, whereas Brandon Allen will probably keep you in games rather than being the reason you win those games. But in day one of their quarterback 2 battle, Brandon Allen worked with the second team, Joshua Dobbs with the third team. Brandon Allen, I think, looked better today. Had a couple of nice throws to Jawan Jennings and kind of looked sharp for the most part, although late in practice, he did almost throw a interception off a check down to Jordan Mason, so can't do that. Cannot do that. And Laurie Matthews, the only quarterback controversy is quarterback 2. It is a quarterback 2 controversy, no longer a quarterback 1 controversy, but back to Joshua Dobbs. So Brandon Allen, relatively nice day, relatively solid day. Had one kind of hiccup, but it wasn't a pick. It was an almost pick. Wasn't great. Wasn't terrible. He's fine. Solid day for Brandon Allen. Joshua Dobbs, not a great day. I don't love saying this, but of those two people, Allen and Dobbs, Allen has looked the best so far, today being his best day between OTAs and minicamp and now training camp, although it's only one practice. Joshua Dobbs has really struggled throughout the 3 pieces of the offseason program so far. And even today, he had Danny Gray open downfield and underthrew him. The ball gets picked off by Malik Mustapha, and you're just like, man, like, no one's asking you to be crazy and be this amazing backup quarterback. But like I said yesterday, this is probably their weakest quarterback room since 2021, maybe even last year during training camp when you had Allen and Purdy and Lance and Darnold. It's just not a great room outside of Brock Purdy. There's a lot of inconsistencies there. And that's okay if no one gets hurt, but if someone goes down, yikes. That said, Brandon Allen so far is a leader in the clubhouse for the quarterback 2 job, in my opinion. I'm moving on here to actually a relative surprise. I am someone that had walked into training camp in the offseason into this season saying, of the receiver room, my eyes are not towards Danny Gray. And after the last 2 years, it's easy to come to that conclusion. But there is a lot of potential still there. Like, you go back and listen to the podcast on Spotify or Apple throughout the 2021 draft process, we are all over Danny Gray. What he showed at SMU was phenomenal. It blows your mind how he's not translated to the NFL in this scheme well, because there's deep crossers. He's fast. He had good routes. He can run in space. He had yak. And it was like, this guy screams Kyle Shanahan. And for whatever reason, he's been hurt in the doghouse and just can't find his way on the field consistently. And maybe it is a year 3 jump for him, but if it was, or it's going to happen, today was a good start. We've all forgotten about him. There's no expectations on you now. You still have the speed. You still have the potential. He's a good player. Like, he can actually be something in the offense. And I don't want to say that, one great day equals a great camp, because it doesn't. You can still get cut, obviously. But I think we often kind of write off players, whether it's TDP or Trey Sermon, now Danny Gray, and others, mind you, that if they don't play in the first few years, they're a bust. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes guys are late bloomers. Maybe it's taken 2 years after a rough couple, injuries and doghouse stints for Danny Gray that this is his big year. Today he had crisp routes, ins, outs, deep crossers look good. The hands, no drops today. I think, being overlooked might be the best thing for Danny Gray. No longer are you a 3rd round pick supposed to be this team's 3rd string slot receiver. Now you're a potential bust that has to fight for a roster spot, and that could be the best thing for Danny Gray. There is some pushback. There is some, interference in regards to where your NFL career is going to go. Let's see what you're made of. Are you going to just fold when things get tough? Or are you going to be a diamond? Today, Danny Gray, he's a diamond. Really good day. Hope he continues to play well. If San Francisco walked into this year with Deebo, Aiyuk, Jennings, Pearsall, Cowing, and Gray. That's a lot of young, explosive receivers with speed. And when you talk about being dynamic, that would be arguably the Niners' most dynamic receiver room probably since Rice and Owens. That's crazy. That's freaking crazy. Now, time will tell. It's one day of camp, but then you add in guys like Chris Conley and Ronnie Bell and others in that room. Tay Martin, right? Tariq Owens. If those are practice squad players for you, great. The depth is there finally, right? So it's one day. Hope it continues, but a good day for Danny Gray so far. Moving to the defense, D. Winters. Kyle Shanahan has said that D. Winters has taken a huge jump going into year 2. And that was the hope, right? There wasn't much talk of him playing last year unless injuries happen. Injuries have unfortunately happened this year to Dre Greenlaw. There are some questions about Devondre Campbell. Will they get last year's Devondre Campbell? Will they get 2021 Devondre Campbell? Who's he going to be as he enters his 30 years of age and about 8 years in the NFL? So there is some uncertainty there. It's a group. It's a positional group I have questions about, but D. Winters has flashed at TCU. And if he's taking a big jump, maybe this is Dre Greenlaw's last year in San Francisco. Maybe it is D. Winters' time to take over his job. Now, I'm not saying that to be a fact. It's just that he's, late round pick, diamond in the rough. There's potential there. He has the speed and the coverage skills to do that. He just needs to learn the defense and be consistent. Hopefully in year 2, he can do that. Again, linebacker room has so many questions. Who was going to be in that room? Is it DFF? Is it Tatum Bethune? Is it Campbell? Is it Winters? Is it Curtis Robinson? Who's Jalen Graham? Who is going to start next to Fred Warner? You pencil in guys, sure, but you got to have somebody step up. And if Winters is making a big leap, that's great news for San Francisco. We have to see it, obviously, but it's day 1. A great sign today in the secondary, in another positional group that has a lot of question marks, is Malik Mustapha. I am someone that, if you watch his tape, go back to my scouting report, you will see me talk about him being him being him being a playmaker like Jair Brown, similar stuff where I was on 95.7 The Game on draft night, day 1, day 2, and day 3, talking about that he's probably the best safety in the draft. There were maybe guys that had, better scouting reports, but overall tape-wise, Malik Mustapha was one of the most well-rounded safeties in the entire draft class. And now you have a room that has Jair Brown going into year 2 who has high hopes, but there are still some question marks of can you prove it again? You don't have anybody behind Hufanga outside of Mustapha. Then there's Taylor Hawkins and George Odom, special teamers, right? Unproven vets, right? If Mustapha can show what he did today, he walked into day 1 of training camp and said, this is my field. I own it. I'm going to assert myself on the gridiron. And Malik Mustapha today not only picked off Joshua Dobbs for the first interception of training camp, but he also forced a fumble and nearly got the recovery on Jawan Jennings. Like, this kid, who knows what he'll be, but in day 1 of training camp, already has a nose for the football. He's walked in to camp with, like Kenny Niners says here, with the chip on his shoulder, right? No bowl game last year for FSU. They want to come in and make it a point that we shouldn't have been passed over. Malik Mustapha has maybe carried that over into his NFL career of, I don't want to be looked over as a potential starting option if Hufanga can't go. You've seen the pictures. Lori says it here. He's built like a machine. This man looks like he is on steroids. He's not, but he is thick. He's dense. He's a great tackler at the college level. He was really good in coverage. And you see in one day, he has a knack towards being around the football. You want to play in the NFL? You get takeaways. You force turnovers. Jair Brown, similar player. Hufanga, similar player. And I don't want to say this because it might sound asinine, but I already have, so I'll say it again. There's a real chance that whether it's this year, next year, whenever it is, Malik Mustapha might already be better than Jair Brown, but could be this team's best safety even if they re-sign Hufanga. Like, that is my potential I have written next to his name is top 10 safety in football, elite level guy, perennial all-pro. I truly believe he can be that, but we will see. Great first day for him, making a statement early in an undecided safety room. Sticking with the cornerbacks, Isaac Guerendo, a guy that was brought in, 1-year deal, underrated, surprisingly wasn't signed. We talked when he first got picked about being a great zone coverage, being good in man coverage, being one of the better, somehow unsigned free cornerbacks in free agency still when he was signed by San Francisco. He was really good at OTAs, good in mini camp, and he carried that over today in training camp. Him and Javon Jennings were going back and forth a couple times, and even had a nice pass breakup against Deebo Samuel. So I know the cornerback room has some questions as well in regards to, is Lenoir playing nickel or is he playing outside? If he plays nickel, who is playing outside next to him or opposite Trevarius Ward, I think the penciled-in name is Isaac Guerendo. And through, again, those 3 offseason programs so far, he has looked the best. He's outshining Rock Ya-Sin and Ambry Thomas and Renardo Green and everybody else. It feels like a 1-year vet like Guerendo wants to come in, prove himself. He's still under 30. Like, he wants to get paid. And if you have back-to-back good years, Isaac Guerendo could be up for big money after this season's over with. Or could work himself into a deal with San Francisco that if they don't want to re-sign Mooney Ward and they like Guerendo a lot, maybe they re-sign Guerendo and re-sign Lenoir and let Mooney Ward walk. That's a conversation for a different day, but through OTAs, through minicamp and now training camp, Isaac Guerendo looks like the strongest candidate to start alongside Mooney Ward and Diamador Lenoir in the cornerback room, which brings us to an unfortunate piece of news. Nothing happened. It's just there is FOMO for a player like Cam Latu. And when you hear Kyle Shanahan talk, you hear Brock Purdy talk, you hear other leaders on the team talk about other positional groups, it's not usually who they mention, it's who they don't mention. Brock Purdy today was asked about tight ends, mainly Eric Saubert. But in his answer, he mentioned players like George Kittle and Braden Willis and Logan Thomas and Eric Saubert. He didn't mention Cam Latu. Not once. Didn't even cross his mind or his lips. And you go back to, I think it was OTAs, Kyle Shanahan took a dig towards Cam Latu saying, we can't grade players that don't practice. Now, Latu was hurt, but that was kind of the dig of like, look, if you can't practice, you can't play. We can't speak on your name. We don't know what you're doing. And today, when Brock Purdy didn't mention Cam Latu's name in a now crowded group of tight ends that features All-Pro George Kittle, veteran likely backup Logan Thomas, Eric Saubert, the blocking tight end, who Brock Purdy threw a great pass to today. Then you have Braden Willis, who played all last year, or for the most part, and was a 7th-round pick and arguably has better potential and a higher floor. Like, it does feel like that when you speak about Cam Latu, and I hated the pick from the beginning, but when you speak about Cam Latu, you're going to put him next to names like Trey Sermon, like Ty Davis Price, and you hope to God, not Danny Gray. a third-round pick whiffs by San Francisco kind of already feels that way for Cam Latu when he's not in the coach's mind and he's not in the quarterback's mind when asked about his specific positional group. So Cam Latu is kind of a non-factor. We'll see how camp goes, but on day one, there's nothing but negativity. And there was no bad news of his practice. It was just, we forgot Cam Latu was here. And I think that's kind of the story of his career so far. Tears his ACL after a terrible training camp last year, walks into this year already injured, and kind of the forgotten man in that room, but also hasn't progressed much at all. Our final bit of news today, because it goes back to one of my bold predictions of training camp, that the San Francisco 49ers kicking woes were going to continue and that they were going to bring in another kicker to kind of go back and forth or have a battle with Jake Moody with, right? And day one, only one day, mind you, but day one, Jake Moody put that bold prediction not to bed, but certainly patted it on the head and put it in the bed. Didn't tuck it in just yet. Didn't give it some warm milk. But certainly when you go 4 for 4 and you hit a 51-yard field goal, you got to give credit where it's due. Jake Moody on day one, pretty good so far. But overall, a good first day of practice. There was some big headlines. Aiyuk holds in, who actually got called into John Lynch's office, it seemed like, and didn't come back outside. So who knows what that was? You never know. Maybe it was, look, get inside. The media's here. We don't want them seeing you. We don't mind you being here. We're happy you're here, but please get inside. We get the point. That's all speculation, but who knows? But he was called into the teacher's office, the principal's office today, and didn't come back out. So we'll see what happens there. Trent Williams, he's holding out. That's a non-story to me. That deal will get done, but a lot of good today. Mustapha, D. Winters, young players making statements early. No Drake Jackson just yet, as James Wilson points out. He says he's trash. Not been great. Won't go that far, but certainly hasn't been great. No Drake Jackson just yet. No Dre Greenlaw probably for a long time, and no Hufanga just yet. All three of those guys on the PUP list. Ricky Pearsall on the NFI. Hoping we can get Pearsall back by next week because I want to talk about the first round pick who doesn't, but we'll have to wait until next week. Tomorrow, though, day number 3, practice number 2 of 49ers training camp. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back here tomorrow talking about the takeaways, the practice itself. What did Kyle say? What did Nick Sorensen say? What did the players say? Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. If you're listening on the audio platforms, leave a review, give us 5 stars, say whatever you want. Just give us 5 stars. On YouTube, tell us what you thought of day 2 in practice number 1 at training camp. Leave a like, hit that bell notification, because the next time we go live, you want to know. The chat was lively. Thank you, James, Kenny, Bobo, Lori, Leon Sandcastle, Fluffy Ninja, his wife Yolanda, and many others. AJ, Ernie Chavez, JJ, thank you all so much. Jim Everett, the great Ramley was in here. Tuck and some Niners as well. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave that review. Follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. If you want to see your Niners play this year, go to SeatGeek.com, find your tickets, and then type in the promo code 49ersaccess. Save yourself $20 off your first purchase, and I'll give you a tip. If it says you already have an account, make a new email. Get free money. Get a discount. Help the show out in the meantime. And as always, my name is Sterling Bennett, and until next time, as always, stay faithful.